to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Tuine. This podcast is sponsored by BoomCloud Dental Membership Software, www.boomcloudapps.com, and Veritas Dental Resources, www.veritasdentalresources.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another exciting episode on the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jordan Comstock, and I got Ben, our other co-host, Ben Tuine on the line. Ben, how you doing?
Very well, Jordan. Really looking forward to this show. We are very excited to introduce to you a good friend of ours, Dr. Chris Salierno, who is also the the editor of Dental Economics. Dr. Salierno received his B.S. from Muhlenberg College and his D.D.S. from SUNY Stony Brook School of Dental Medicine. He completed his formal training at Stony Brook's Hospital General Practice Residency program, where he focused primarily on implant prosthetics. While in dental school, he was the national president of the American Student Dental Association. Today, he continues his advocacy efforts on all levels of the American Dental Association tripartite. On the national level, he has served on the Council of Ethics, Bylaws and Judicial Affairs, the Council on Scientific Affairs, the Council on Dental Accreditation and Licensure. He also serves on the ADA New Dentist Committee representing New York State. He is a member of the Council on Membership and the New Dentist Subcommittee for the New York State Dental Association. Locally, he serves as the Vice President of the Suffolk County Dental Society. Dr. Salierno serves as a co-editor of the Surgical Restorative Resource, a website and e-newsletter dedicated to the team approach to complex care. He also serves, as I mentioned, as the editor on Dental Economics, the world's largest dental magazine. He has presented numerous resources for dentists, including lectures, articles, podcasts, and webcasts. He lectures internationally on clinical dentistry, practice management, and leadership development. We love his work. I met him personally in San Diego and have witnessed his lectures, and I highly recommend them. And it's great to have him on our program today. Dr. Chris, welcome to our program. So great to have you on.
Thank you for having me, guys.
All right. So, I think you're on the top tier of famous people that we get to interview. We had Dr. Mark Costas earlier this week. We have you.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we still have Dr. Ferran on the schedule for tomorrow.
Yep.
Nice.
And,
nice. Well, I'm thrilled to be included in a pantheon of famous dentists.
Oh yeah,
if you guys give me that title, I happily accept it.
Who doesn't know you? I mean, the dental economics readership is so vast, and love your articles that you wrote. The one that you wrote about the short one you wrote about the California decision earlier this year as it related to Delta Dental.
Oh, I read that one too. Yeah.
That was a fun one.
Yeah,
that was a fun one.
Well, we try to keep the content in DE very positive. We don't like to have authors bash products or services from companies. But, when it comes to PPOs, that's usually when we can lay into some folks.
That's awesome.
Good
why
to know.
not?
Good to know.
Why not?
You should hear our intro. It's, we don't take milk from insurance companies. It's bleeped out for the children, but...
For the children.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Nice, very nice.
So Chris, let's talk about your affiliation with Dental Economics. So we love the magazines and your articles and others' articles, right? There's a lot of contributors. But for those that don't read it, what's your option on how reading the magazine can or may help a practicing dentist? Does that make sense? What I just said?
Yeah, so I took over, my predecessor was Dr. Joe Blaze. I took over for him as chief editor about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And the publication's been around for over 100 years, since before the First World War, and it always had a focus on the business of dentistry, even way back when.
Wow.
And it still is a print publication, of course, as it was back then, but we have a lot of digital channels and e-newsletters and YouTube and video, features. All media groups are going through a transformation right now and offering different ways for folks to consume content and engage with content, right? Social media, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
How do people want to receive it? Well, we're actually going through those calls right now, and we look for folks to respond and say, yes, I am a practicing dentist, and I'd like to receive it. For the folks out there that are retired dentists, unfortunately, we do not send a print publication to those folks. It's very expensive to print.
I was going to
and
say,
mail
yeah,
a publication. Yeah, and for the sake of our advertisers too, we want to send this publication to people that are making buying decisions. So we send to over 100,000 practicing dentists in the U.S. And for those folks that want to consume this content, they can get it for free online on dentaleconomics.com. So anyone can access the content. You have to be a practicing dentist or in a practicing dental office to receive it as a print publication. And we have a growing number of people that actually prefer to receive it digitally. So the iPad users out there, we have about, last I checked, it was about 10 or 11,000 people, and it's growing, that like to just get that digitized version of a magazine. But I don't know about you guys. I still prefer print for most of my publications.
Yeah, I get like Entrepreneur Magazine or Inc. Magazine, and I prefer those to be print.
Yeah, I get New York.
And those are great ones. And actually, when I came on board a few years ago, we remodeled DE with its look and its organization after those two exact publications.
Very
I'm a
cool.
huge fan of Think and Entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
I think over the years, as being in the dental industry, I think the management aspect of education is so underserved in communities. Over the last 5 years, it seems to have increased quite a bit. And that's one of the reasons why I love the DE magazine is for that. Great clinical things and also great management stuff.
Yes.
Let's talk about insurance. So you're a practicing dentist as well, Long Island, New York. First time I heard you speak, it was at the Academy of Dental CPA meeting in San Diego.
That's right.
2015.
In beautiful San Diego.
Oh,
Yeah. Nice.
And that entire event, I think you were the highlight. I think every CPA that was there would agree, just in side conversation, like, man, Chris's presentation was awesome. It was entertaining. It was funny, but it was also relevant from a management perspective. And I loved your take, your joke on what you talked about Spirit Airlines or Virgin Airlines. They charge for everything. They charge for water.
Right.
They're going to start charging for air.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny, but I'd love to get your take on dental insurance. So our audience is primarily people, office managers, and their dentist owners who are looking for some takes and feedback on dental insurance. So as a practicing dentist, Long Island, New York, what's your take on dental insurance?
A necessary evil is the short bit there. And by the way, I'll join the mutual admiration side. I thought your presentation at that meeting was spectacular, and that's when we connected and you started to write some articles for us, and thank you for that.
No, thank you.
So, I started a practice from scratch in 2010. I'd been working for a few years before then. And when you get your team together to do to buy or certainly to start up a practice, you get your accountant and, equipment manager and, the lender, all those folks come together. They become kind of advisors, right? They want to see you succeed, especially if you have to pay them a note every month. And it was essentially it was like a foregone conclusion that we were going to need to take some PPOs when we started. And that's a controversial statement that I made just there, because I think it's geographical in certain parts of the country, depending upon the makeup of your population that you're serving, depending upon the number of dentists that are there, and some other kind of socioeconomic factors. It may not be a foregone conclusion that you have to take some PPOs.
Right.
There are certainly folks out there, as you guys I'm sure discussed on the podcast, that don't take any PPOs and never have, never will, and bully for them. But being in Long Island, where there is a very high saturation of dentists and patients too, but a lot of such high saturation of dentists, it is an important part of a marketing strategy. For sure, to be able to attract patients through accepting some PPOs and working with them. There are dentists in my neck of the woods that are fee for service, but if they want to have a busy and successful and profitable practice, then they have to really turn on the charm and market themselves aggressively. And you know, and I don't mean aggressive in a negative way, but it's a challenge out here. It's definitely a challenge. The folks that are doing it have had practices for a long time. They may be in their 50s or 60s or even 70s, and they could still have really great successful practices that are totally PPO free. But that's a mantle that they maybe have inherited or grew years ago. To start one of those from scratch would be a real challenge in my neck of the woods.
I agree with you 100%. I was at the Queens County Dental Society meeting about 2.5, 3 years ago, and we've acquired a lot of clients in New York City, where you're at, Long Island, all throughout that area. And I think you're spot on. It's a very challenging market. In Utah, I don't think Utah is just as, I think the number of dentists per capita where you're at, there's more than there are here in Utah. But at one point in time in Utah, where I'm at, it seemed like there were so many dentists on every single corner. And it seems like that today, but there's been so much population growth that balanced things out. And that's exactly what I do with our clientele. A lot of our clients that do startup practices in big cities, you almost have to play the insurance game. And for those of you, you said that's a controversial statement, but the reality is that is the truth when it comes to developing a new practice or even acquiring a struggling practice in a city. We have clients that call us and that want to take over a fee-for-service practice, and what they find is that they experience greater attrition, a lot of attrition when they take over those fee-for-service practices.
Yeah.
And then they start finding themselves looking into the PPO model. And frankly, the PPO model, it does work for many practices that look at it. And we're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about how you looked at it from a cost perspective. But I agree with your assessment. Every practice is different. Every location is different. In your location, I think you did the right thing. And it's been, of course, paying off for you, right? Your practice is doing well?
Yeah, it's been 7 years, and we're growing strong, growing every year. We've made a ton of mistakes, of course, as my partner and I. I mean, expect to do that.
I think that goes along with any business.
Yeah, and hopefully you learn from them. That doesn't always go along with everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, a goal would be to say we have about, say, 8 PPOs, right, broadly, you know, the major players. And, yeah, sure, a goal for us would be to get rid of the bottom-paying ones as we grow the rest. You know, these are the kinds of growth decisions that you make as you become too busy. You start to reach capacity. Do I expand more hours, bring in more associates, build another chair? Do I just get rid of some of the bottom-paying ones? So that is part of our strategy. Will I ever, as a practicing dentist, be PPO free? I don't know. It's a goal, but you know, we have to be very practical in how we approach that. You know, if you read the tea leaves and look at some of the major economic forces that are having an effect on dentistry today, I'm not going to say that PPOs are going to always be around and will be the major player here, but at least the way I read them, I think that some form of third-party payer, whether it is public insurance or private insurance, is certainly going to always be around, and it could certainly continue to be a growing way of how dentists get paid. So to completely ignore them is fine if that fits into a very specific business model that you have. If you have concocted using the Canvas model, you know, if you're familiar with that from generating business models, if you put your business canvas together, which is, I love that.
I'm actually looking at the book in my bookshelf here.
Oh, it's such a great book. That's one of my Bibles. But like if you start with who's my target demographic and then what are my key services for them, if you build all of that together in a business plan, and part of that for you is to not work with PPOs or not be beholden to PPOs, then great. But it has to make sense. You can't just hang up a shingle and be in PPO free and expect to be successful anymore.
I think it's such an emotional thing for a lot of people, and that's one of my frustrations is, you know, we have a lot of clients that they do need to do PPOs. They need to play the game, and we're going to teach them how to do that, and we're going to hold their hand throughout the process, and they'll be just as successful as the other clients that we have. But it's such an emotional thing that's so hard to overcome because a lot of them felt, my dad was fee-for-service. There's absolutely no way I'm going to change that business model. But naturally, what you see with those practices, if they're not willing to invest in the training, that's what you really have to do. Is you have to invest in a lot of training and have good systems and protocols in place, and you can be successful as fee for service. But my take is it's much more difficult in saturated markets than it is playing the PPO game. It's funny, we have a client that right next door, there's a fee for service office and their PPO practice. The fee for service doctor came in and they started talking numbers, and the fee for service doctor was so blown away that this doctor is taking home 3 times more than what he thought was already a good income, being in practice for 45 years. And it changed his way of thinking on the PPO world. Yes, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't like dental insurance, and they don't like me. Some of them you call them up and like, Ben who? Tuine? Oh, we don't like that guy. We're not going to deal with you.
That dude again?
Yeah.
Calling to negotiate these fees?
Yeah. We always find a way to work it.
Ben, I think your photo's on a lot of dartboards. And the PPO. And that's a good dartboard to be on, by the way.
Yes, I agree.
Good thing.
I'm actually very proud of it, when at some of the meetings, the attendees will say, hey, I called this insurance company, and they said that we should stay far away from you. Then my common response is, well, if you really love them, then I bet you love fighting those denied claims over and over and over again, right? Yep.
Yeah, exactly, man.
So they're not on your side.
Like, there's a lot of headaches that come along with working with PPOs, no doubt. I think there are some misconceptions. I think you guys would agree with me. One misconception, for if someone's considering about jumping on PPOs or starting a practice and working with PPOs, depending on your situation, there's a lot more to consider than just what I'm about to say here. But, one of the misconceptions would be, well, I'm going to have to run my practice like a factory now in order to make the same amount of money if I didn't take them. And I think that's a misconception. Another misconception would be, well, now I'm totally beholden to insurance companies and they're going to dictate treatment to me, and patients are only going to want to do the things that are covered. And I don't think that's entirely true either. Patients can have this insurance mindset of, I only do what the insurance tells me to do, but then that's up to you and your team to educate them about what's best for their health and having financing opportunities for them to be able to afford care. I don't think very few people, there's studies that the D.D.S has shown too. I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, the average American can't afford to have an unexpected $500 or $1,000 expense in a given month. Not that everyone's living paycheck to paycheck, but if I came up to you and told you, by the way, you owe me $2,000 now for a thing that doesn't hurt and doesn't bother you, you'd be like, what? I don't, And that's so that's a moment, an opportunity for education. And so having the systems in place for you and your team to educate people is great. And so you're not beholden to the insurance companies dictating what they can do. That's your patient not understanding the opportunities. And back to that first one about running a factory, you certainly do not have to run a factory and have this, this kind of mill for patients in order to maintain some sort of profitability. I mean, there are certain really low-paying plans that may, you may need to really look at how to work with volume in order to do well with them. But certainly for the major PPOs, that's not the case. There are efficiencies that could be realized in a lot of practices, in my opinion. And working efficiently out of, say, 2 chairs with 1 or 2 assistants is certainly something that is possible. And that's not for every dentist, but there's ways to absolutely make these things work. And I think those 2 things are definitely misconceptions, in my opinion.
I fully agree with you. Yeah. I know Jordan has another question, but I can't stop thinking about that one thing that you talked about, where they're not in pain and you're asking for $2,000 from them. So earlier this week, my wife wanted to buy one of those new barbecue grills, or those smoke grills that have the smoke pellets in them. And I'm used to buying like the cheap charcoal grills, $35 at Walmart or Target. I love grilling with charcoal, and to me it brings a different flavor. So
it does, though.
So I asked my wife, how much is the grill that you want? And she says it's $2,400.
Wow.
Yeah.
My next question was, does it sing and dance? And then from there, the conversation, her responses were just X-rated after that. Yeah, it does this, and that.
Right.
But as a consumer, it's like, gosh, I think you're right. She sent me a video that totally sold me on it, and it was the presentation of it that I thought, wow, that would make my life much easier. And I was sold. Initially, $2,400. I was like, heck no, I'm not going to spend that much money on a grill. I can do the cooking on my own. But after the benefits were explained to me, I was totally on board and thought, wow, this would be a great investment. This is no different than buying a new range inside of your house. The only difference is that you can use this grill outside, and you can save on some energy costs and not have to recool the house after you heat it up using the oven. But I think you're totally right. You can make it work. A lot of it, is just presentation, communication, and all that. And to me, that's the biggest difference with great successful PPO practices or practices that do play. I should say, PPO modeled practices that play the game. Is a lot of them are very successful because of their presentation.
Yeah, and I love talking about sales, and I know that makes a lot of dentists cringe. I don't sell dentistry, and I agree with what they're conjuring in their minds of, like, with all respect to used car salesmen, they're conjuring that used car salesman, high pressure, high stakes sale, and I never want that to be. That shouldn't be that's the bad side, the dark side of sales. but it's by learning from sales techniques that you learn. And let's not call it sales if they like. We can call it effective communication to help the audience understand their needs and turning their, so on and so forth. But basically it's linking what they want to what they need, in this case, dentally.
Yeah.
And I do a whole presentation on case presentation and case acceptance. And in a nutshell, essentially is you put yourself in that person's shoes from their perspective, right? How would you feel if I said, like, okay, on a routine exam, I noticed that there's this growth inside your toe, your pinky toe. Now, I know it doesn't hurt, but we're going to have to chop it off. You're going to get a bionic toe, though. It's going to cost $5,000. Here's some, payment options. You're going to be like, I don't even care. Like, why bionic? No, I'll just leave my toe here. It doesn't hurt. I don't care that you found it on a routine exam. I'm good, right? So, of course you would respond that way. And so if you can think about how you would respond when talking to someone, that might help make you a little more, conjure some empathy and help you give a better presentation. But essentially, you listen to the person, you ask them questions. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What's your goal for your oral health? And it doesn't even have to be even that obvious, but the point is to find out what's motivating this person. They want to get ahead in life. They want to be profitable. They want to get out of pain, and they want to be able to chew, whatever it is, and tie what their goals are in life or in dentistry to what it is that they need dentally. And that's just in a nutshell there. But, for dentists out there, if you're not on PPOs, if you can master the systems that are necessary for you and your team to successfully educate patients, then you're going to have a much, much better go of it.
Awesome. No, that was an awesome answer, Chris. I was going to call you doctor, but then I realized what you said earlier. So
yeah,
I'm pretty informal. Even my own patients too. I'm like, hey, I'm Chris, and they're like, oh, that's cool.
No, I think that's awesome. I really do. So just to end this question about insurance, where do you think dental insurance is going? As you know, I'm sure there are several insurance disruptors making their way into the industry. Do you think dental insurance will ever go away? What are your thoughts there?
No, I don't think it'll ever go away. So again, if you look at public versus private, and I may be a little fuzzy on the statistics, but it's something like 2/3, so like 66% of Americans are covered by private or public benefits. So it's a majority, right? And that factors for most practices. If you run a crunch on how many patients are on PPOs in your practice versus fee-for-service, it's usually like 30% or so, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on where you practice, that don't have any insurance. And sometimes they're your older patients that are retired and they've lost their dental benefits, right? That kind of a thing. But what's interesting is 40% of Americans that do have private benefits don't even use them, right? They have benefits, whatever they might be. They might be really good or not so good. They don't even make use of them. So, if we look at the flattening of demand for dental care in the U.S., which is still has been flat for a number of years now, it's been flat since 2008, and it has been declining, not a slower rate of growth since 2002 it was. The cost is still a huge motivating factor for a lot of patients as to why they say they don't go to the dentist. But then even when they have insurance, that still doesn't necessarily get them to go to the dentist. So it's a real messy issue, and no one's figured any of this out. But you will see, I'm sure, a couple of major pushes. Someone to, as you said correctly, someone to disrupt the PPO marketplace. I think what a lot of folks are looking for is to cut the third party out and have kind of like the direct reimbursement idea from a few years back that the ADA tried to push, where you just get dentists and businesses, and the HR groups of these businesses to just communicate more directly, and that will introduce some savings right off the bat because you don't have this third party that's overlooking claims and whatever. So that's one push. I think people are looking for. There's got to be a way for people to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
We're just waiting for it.
Yeah, there are a few things.
The other push, real quickly, I'll just say the other push is public. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't forget that. The other push would be for public insurance. So revamping Medicaid, we'll see how that goes, but also potentially having more services covered by Medicare. So that's those are, I think, are the two main trends to follow in the coming years, and everyone's just kind of waiting for someone to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I like that. On the PPO disruptor side, I saw in dental economics a doctor out of Manhattan, I think he was located. I think it was called the Doctors Network, and it was very similar to what you put together, Jordan, but a little bit different in the sense that the fee schedules were set. And then there's Jordan. What Jordan is doing is, I think, is a huge PPO disruptor. I think every dental office in the United States should have an in-house membership plan or a version of such that's legal in their state that activates over half of the public that does not have dental insurance. Dental is still a necessity for everybody, and one way or another, they're going to have to go and see a dentist regardless of whether they have dental insurance or not. But a few exciting things. We'll make an announcement here in a couple of months, but I'm following one in particular that I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away too much of what they're doing, but what they're doing is working, where they have over 90,000 patients in Minnesota and Wisconsin that have converted to their program, and a contingent for another 1.5 million patients in a couple other states that will follow suit. And the nice thing is it's very similar to what you said, Chris, about the ADA's direct payment program. It is awesome. No. You eliminate the middleman, and there's more to pay the provider, more savings for the employers. Patients can get better benefits, not the traditional $1,500 annual max. So with the way the numbers work, the low utilization, we actually pulled some broker data. In some areas in the United States, 40% of the patients don't use their insurance. But in most other areas, what we're finding is that it's more than 55% of patients don't use their insurance, not even for a basic cleaning. And with one major carrier, only 22% of their patients ever had to use their deductible, which means that most of the patients, about half of a good number of patients would come in just to get a basic cleaning, a filling or here or there. But only 22%. And that's what we're facing in the industry. The production that you do in the office, if you look at it from a grand scheme of things, there's so much opportunity out there. There's so much dental need that's diagnosed, that's not treated, and undiagnosed as well. So in my opinion, the dental profession, with or without insurance, is a great industry to be in. I'd like to talk about that cost analysis. So you were here in Salt Lake City 2-3 weeks ago. It was nice to see you here in person. Yeah. And you mentioned that you put together this cost analysis, what it cost to deliver a procedure, seed a crown, things like that. Can you talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. So this originally I wrote an article in D that came out a couple months ago, and it talked about the concept of procedure cost, which is a name I sort of came up with. But the concept's been around for a long time. It came from a TV show Bar Rescue with John Taffer.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Really good great restaurant maker. It's gotten a little more reality TV in recent years, but the first few seasons are gold. And so in the restaurant industry, like many industries, they have their methods of determining if something is profitable or not. And we've understood in the dental industry, hopefully, sometimes still don't pay attention to it, but just the overhead of the overall practice, like 25%, let's say, of your costs go to your team members, right? And like 5 to 7% for supplies and those kinds of things. But what started to fascinate me after watching his show was, what is the cost of an individual procedure? What is the profitability of an individual procedure? And so on his show, he'll just, go up to a bar or restaurant owner who's failing and doesn't know what they're doing and says, what does it cost you to put out this plate of food? What does it cost you for this bottled beer or this poured pint of beer? And they would, of course, have no idea. But he was able to rattle off industry standards and say, well, your cost should be 17%, or for this, it's 22%. Therefore, you're not charging enough. And I was like, oh, my gosh, this is brilliant. Why have we never – what's my crown cost? I had no – if you ask most dentists what's your crown cost, they'll tell you what their lab fee is. And that is not your crown
that's not
cost.
The accurate crown cost, no.
Yeah, it's a significant
part of it.
portion of it.
Yeah.
But it's not the whole thing. So in the article, I talk about procedure cost, and that's a very simple calculation. You just take your total costs, which are your direct costs. It's your labor, and in that I include your assistant, if you're assuming you have a chairside assistant with you. How much did you pay for, say, an hour and a half? Hour prep, temp, impression. 2 weeks later, you bring him in for a half hour for inserts. Let's say it's an hour and a half. What is your assistant's cost right there? And then, you actually add up all your direct material costs, impression material, anesthetic, all that stuff. And that sounds like a crazy calculation, but I'm only doing this for, my main, 6 or 8 procedures, and you only have to do this cost once, and, you don't get crazy and add like cotton rolls or whatever, but, the major items that you would think of. And when you get that information together, that's your total cost. Divide that by what you charge, what your fee is, and multiply it by 100, and that's your procedure cost. You want that number to be really low. The lower that number is, the more that's left over for profitability. Now, since I've written that article and developed this concept, there's another amazing show that I started to fall in love with called The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis.
Oh, yeah. I love The Prophet.
He is so great. And he talks about the same concept. He talks about it not from a cost perspective, but from a profitability perspective. It's the same concept, though. So now when I go and lecture on it, I actually do a slightly different calculation. It doesn't really matter what you do. Basically, instead of doing cost divided by fee, I do your fee minus your cost divided by your fee. So it doesn't matter. You end up getting the other side of the equation. So if instead of 18% of cost, or so let's make it easy math, instead of 20% of procedure cost, it's 80% of profit that you're looking at. Whatever number you're looking at, it doesn't matter. It's two sides of the same coin. But the point is to look at this stuff, cost and profitability for individual procedures, your major procedures. And when I started to look at that and calculate that, I was led to very interesting conclusions about how to set my fees, about maybe using different materials. There were procedures I was doing where I was breaking even or even losing money. And this is before you even add in all of the other costs of running the business, right? This is not I am not even paying my hygienist or my front desk staff yet. This is just my assistant and the cost of my materials. That's it. And it's alarming in some cases when you look at this.
Yeah. There's a guy here, gosh, I can't remember his name, here in Utah that does an analysis. I think his is a lot more aggressive. And I looked at the reports and I thought it was a great idea. But then after talking to you and reading your article, and then Jordan, you put together something very similar, right, on your website?
Well, yeah. After I read Chris's article, I'm like, oh, there's got to be some tools out there that can help practices figure out the procedure profit margin. So Chris and I were emailing back and forth and trying to, I asked him, like, do you know if there's anything out there, like on Excel that it's like a template? He's like, I don't know if I've seen anything out there. So I'm like, well, I can make one. So I made a quick little calculator that helps practices create or understand their procedure profit margins. And I added in there the fee-for-service fees versus the PPO fees so they can compare the two as well and kind of see what's happening there. But yeah, I have a resource there, and I'm big into this. When I managed my dad's lab, like we mentioned with Mark Cossey's interview, that's something he never did, and it drove me crazy. So I had to figure it out on my own, how to figure out, all the profit margin procedures. So, yep, I'm big into that. I think it's amazing, and every practice should be doing it.
Yeah, if you're not doing it and you're
and
successful, that's like the magic. That's the rabbit trick, right? It's just magic. You're doing okay. It's luck.
Yeah.
And it's my goal is to make the calculation simple, and I love the spreadsheet that Jordan put together. It totally makes sense, and it follows a lot what's in that DE article, and just makes it so turnkey for folks. The resistance I get is I don't want to add all this stuff up, and it's like it's actually not that time consuming. When you have down patient time for an hour, you and your assistant just sit together and just figure it out. Do a procedure at a time. And you're only doing it for your major stuff, your crown, your two-surface filling, let's say, molar endo, whatever. The other resistance I get to is, but what about what you pay yourself, and what about your cost for your staff? And this is where I have to be very clear. This is gross profit margin, not net profit margin.
Yeah.
If you watch a show like Marcus Lemonis, this is the calculation he does all the time when he talks about, these are good margins for this product. He's like, what does it cost to do this? What if it's flowers? Like, how much for the vase? How much for the flowers? How much to pay the person for the 5 minutes to arrange it? This is you're deliberately not looking at all those other costs, and here's why. I want to be able to compare my practice to your practice to someone else's practice. Maybe in your practice you have 5 hygienists and 10 people at the front desk. Maybe I only have 1. If we start adding in those other costs, we're muddying the waters a bit. It's still useful to look at that for your own personal practice, but it makes the complications more complicated, and it also just makes it, now we're comparing apples to oranges and not something as pure. But when you do put that number together, as Jordan mentioned, it's very good to use to determine what your different fees are for crown on different insurance panels and whatnot. And I found, the lowest paying, insurance that I accept in my practice for like a denture, let's say, I was barely breaking even, probably losing money to do that. And so now you can, as an active business owner, make a choice. I'm going to drop this insurance, A. B, you say, geez, you run a report and you say, I'm only doing 2 dentures a year on this plan. Whatever. I'll put up with it, and because I'm seeing all these other patients for these other more profitable procedures. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to refer out dentures on this particular plan. I think that's a perfectly ethical thing to do. And if not dentures, then endo or whatever. You say, I'm going to send this to a specialist. They'll get great care there. The specialist is going to get reimbursed better. And I just can't make this procedure profitable in my practice because I need more time or materials or whatever. And so you refer it out, and the patient's going to get great care. But the point is that you're looking at this stuff and you're making a decision.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Any other thoughts on that, Ben? Or
no. That's with the master said it all. That's pretty good.
The master said it all.
I'll close by saying for dentists that are considering getting on a new PPO schedule, you know what you do. You get the facts in, and you look at a couple of those big procedures. This is another way to use this to use this information to determine, can you accept this new plan, rather than just kind of getting a gut feeling like, $600 for a crown? I think that's okay. Put some math on it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll say is this is a very useful thing for determining how to set your own fees, even your private fees.
Oh yeah.
You want to charge $1,500 for a crown because you feel you've been around a long time, you do good crowns, and you want to do that. Okay, great. Totally go for that. But we tend to, we publish a fee survey every year. That's a helpful thing to know is, what are dentists in your area, your neck of the woods charging for things. That's helpful for you to determine what to charge. But, you also want to look at your own costs. You may look at, for example, say implant crowns, and you realize that you're ridiculously profitable on implant crowns, and you say, you know what, I'm not doing that many. maybe I am priced too high. And I ran my costs. Geez, I think I could actually lower the cost a little bit, and maybe the demand among my patients for this service will go up, and I'll do more procedures and help more patients. By still profitable, but I was actually charging too much. So it can be very useful to look at this, and rather than just doing gut feelings on what your fee should be.
Yeah, that's smart. To me, it's better to make some profit with the patient in the chair as opposed to no profit, unless you're an extremely busy practice. Absolutely, you want to pare back on the low paying PPOs, like you said earlier, Chris. But I like this concept. I think this is one area that's missed in just about every dental practice that's out there. It could help big time if you invest some time, finding out what your costs are to deliver a procedure.
Yeah, I just think it's so critical because I saw the effects of not knowing your numbers when I managed my dad's dental lab, and it was I remember he was selling a crown to a doctor, and he was losing money every crown he did for that doctor. I created a calculator for my dad as well, and I'm like, look, you're losing money on this. Like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Right? And the same applies to any dentist or any other business owner out there. You got to know your numbers. And I think understanding the cost of a procedure and your profit margins is so critical. But that's me. I put a high value on that. So let's move on to the next question here. So Chris, what are some of your favorite articles on dental economics? And I know both Ben and I write articles, so you don't have to choose ours, but tell us what you like up there.
So present company excluded, and you both are excellent writers, and of course I am not just saying that because you're on the phone with me here. So we're not a product magazine and we're not a clinical magazine. We're practice management, right? But one of my favorite features is, and I'll give a shout out to my buddy Josh Austin. Dr. Austin is a GP down in San Antonio. We've been friends for a number of years. He took over the Pearls for Your Practice column. And so again, even though we're not a product review magazine, he just is such a funny writer, such an intelligent writer. I never miss him writing about products. I find some people that write about products out there in various publications, sometimes it just sounds a little commercial, and it's just like a press release that's been regurgitated. There are great product writers out there, and Josh is one of them. And he also does video pearls too. So for some of his pearls, he'll actually do a video demo on our website as well. So shout out to Josh. I never miss his column. And then someone that writes for us periodically, she has a really great series right now, is Dr. Erin Elliott. She's a general dentist out of Idaho, and she's a significant portion of her practice is now devoted to sleep apnea, which is a very hot topic these days. But while most of us dabble a little bit, she has days of her practice that are just devoted to this. She's grown her practice tremendously through it. But she cracked the code for getting paid for this stuff, how to bill medical and all of that. Forget it. You thought PPOs were a pain. Like, try billing medical, right? So,
oh, yeah.
So she has a great series. She's written a bunch of articles for us, but she's doing a series right now where she just walks you through the foreign language that is medical billing and how to build systems with your team so that this becomes a very smooth process and you can get more appliances done. So shout out to Erin Elliott, and she does some videos for us as well to take us deeper into the content. Cool.
Well, hey, I know you have this upcoming practice management conference. Tell us a little bit about that. I'm looking at the speaker lineup. You have Tarun Agarwal, you have Stephen Anderson, Mike DiTolla, Joy Jandula.
Oh, yeah, Joy Jandusa, yeah, and
Roger Levin
will be there. Yep.
Got Alan Schiff.
Alan Schiff, who's great, right? So we started conferences last year, and so this will be our second one. It's a complete, total focus on practice management. There's no clinical lectures, nothing like that. And what's great is it's an intimate setting, right? So we're looking to have that kind of think tank approach. It's not going to be 1,000 people at this conference. That's not what it's for. The idea is you get to spend quality time with these leaders in practice management, both in the lecture and outside of the lecture. And some of the most fun I had last year was in between sessions and after sessions, we get to hang out and you just get to talk to people from around the country. Like, what are you doing with your business right now? What are your headaches? How did you handle this? So you walk out of there being like, I got this. Like, you know what to do when you get back in Monday morning, and what systems to start building. So it's going to be in Charlotte, and it's less than a month away. It's July 20th to the 21st. And if people want to register, check it out. It's at principlesofpracticemgmt.com. If you just go to dentaleconomics.com, you can find some links for that. But it'll be. I can't wait for it. It's like I said, it's in its second year, but it's already becoming one of my top 3 conferences to go to.
Cool. I wish I found out about this earlier this year, because I have that week scheduled. So principles of practice management. practicemgmt.com. So I found the website. I'll post it in the show notes. So for those of you that are listening on your iPhone, iPad, or driving, Chris, I'll put that in the show notes for people to register and attend. July 20th to 21st, 2017. If you're listening to this after 2017, we'll be there. Will there be any other future conferences for this, Chris?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do one a year. We're looking to keep it around the summertime. And next venue to be determined, but we'll move it around the U.S.
Let's go to Disney World. I'll be there. I'm usually there all month of July. Well,
we love Disney World.
Well, Chris, hey, thanks so much for being on the program. Do you have any closing thoughts? This has been extremely valuable information. I love taking notes, and I have a lot of things that I'm going to write, as we put together the show notes for you, just some of the highlights of our conversation today. Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience about anything that we discussed or anything that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, I would just say, and thank you both, by the way. I love the material that you produce, and thank you both for what you do for the dental profession. In closing, it's a absolutely bonkers and interesting time to be a dentist right now, and especially the solo practitioner may feel kind of lost and lonely as these big sweeping changes are happening. They feel like PPOs are taking over, or DSOs, or whatever it is, and it is a wonderful time, an amazing time to be a dentist, but the game's changed and we have to become active business owners, not passive ones. So the key, I think, to all of that is just to stay in touch with each other. Go to your local dental society meetings, go to your local study club meetings, go to national meetings, participate in discussions on Facebook and all of this. Just stay connected to each other as a profession. That will not only make you a more learned business owner, but also we will stay more united as a profession, be able to keep track of these big sweeping changes as they affect us.
Thank you.
Love that. That's awesome.
We appreciate what you do for the industry. I think you're one of the you're one of the new age superheroes for the industry, and I think what you do in terms of the education, the facilitating of these conferences is just so huge for the profession, and it impacts it in such a positive way. So we thank you for that. And then one of the other things I want to invite the listeners, if you have a study club, or if you're part of a CE organization for your local ADA group or any other groups, AGD, Chris does speak. He is a wonderful speaker. He has a speaking prospectus that he can send you, right, Chris? You do take on some speaking assignments.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So highly recommend. If anybody's interested in that, Chris, how do they get a hold of you?
I appreciate that. Yeah. So my blog is called thecuriousdentist.com, and I put a lot of my lecture material on there. It's available for free, and you can also reach out to me with any of that. And I appreciate you mentioning that.
Awesome. So thecuriousdentist.com, and we'll post the principles of practice management on the website. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on. And
thanks, Chris.
We sure look forward to doing more work with you here in the near future, and hope to. Our goal is to organize a big conference here. I'm working on a few groups here. I'm just trying to get these study clubs combined so that we can do this together as a profession, and maybe have 200 to 300 dentists here locally, because we just think the world of you and think that you have a lot to offer by way of education. So thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great summer.
Yeah, you too.